everybody, it's Libby, and today we are going to go over the books that I bought in May. So the first part of this video will be the books from the used bookstore here called Second and Charles. Some of the books that I got were ones that have been on my wish list for quite a while the other ones were just ones as I was browsing, I saw them, they looked cool, and so I was able to grab them. And the first book that we're going to be talking about is The Magicians by Lev Grossman. So this book is one that I've had on my radar for quite some time. It sounds like a very fascinating read. It is about a boy named Quentin who is a boy genius, but he is really tired of his everyday life. He absolutely hates the mundane, sort of day-to-day stuff that he has to do. And he's really obsessed with these novels, these children's novels, and in those novels there's a world there that he is obsessed with. I believe it's called Fillory. He wishes that was where he lived, and then one day his world does kind of get upended as he gets invited to go to a school of magic where he learns kind of the dark secret past of those children's novels, that there might be more to the world than just what's on the page. So I think that sounds like something I'll be really interested in. So we'll see how it is. I will keep you updated. Hopefully I like it, and then I can watch the TV show and see if it's good too, so that'll be fun. The next book that I picked up from Second and Charles is 1,000 Pieces of You by Claudia Gray. This is the first book in the Firebird series. I have seen this cover many times before. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I've just never picked it up. I don't know why, because it sounds like an absolutely perfect read for me. This book follows our main character Marguerite, who has two parents that are absolute genius physicists, and one day her mom invents something called the Firebird, and the Firebird allows people to travel to alternate dimensions. Eventually, Marguerite's father actually is murdered, and they believe that the murderer was one of her parents' students. And so he actually goes through the Firebird, makes what looks to be the perfect crime, and so Marguerite chases after him through all these alternate dimensions to try to figure out if he did it. It sounds really exciting. I believe there are 3 books in this series. I've not read Claudia Gray before, but she has been highly recommended to me, so I think this would be a perfect read. The next book that I got from Second and Charles was The Grim Lovelies by Megan Shepherd. This is another YA fantasy novel that I think looks beautiful. I have never heard of this book, but as soon as I saw this cover, I was instantly drawn to it. Had to figure out what it was about. It has a really cool title that really drew me in, and I love the style of the cover. This book follows our main character, Anouk, who is something called a beastie. She was once an animal who was enchanted to become a human girl so that she could be basically a slave or a servant for the person that enchanted her. She does not want to be turned back into an animal. She wants to stay as a human. She's really jealous of the human world and what it has to offer, but she's stuck cleaning and doing the bidding of the enchantress that made her into a human. However, that enchantress is murdered, so the obvious person who could have committed this crime is Anouk. So she is actually accused of the murder, and she has, I believe, 3 days to prove her innocence so that she does not get turned back into an animal, and so she can stay as a human in this world. It sounds very fun. I've picked up a lot more mysteries lately. Those were not normally things that I would have been drawn to before, but I think the fantasy element really speaks to me, so I'm really excited to see how this one turns out. I believe there will be 3 books in this series. I know the second one is out already. I'm not sure if it'll be a duology or a trilogy, but it'll be really fun. I hope I really like this one. The next book I picked up was Ink by Amanda Sun. This book was actually on my wish list. I was wanting to find some books set in Japan, and I found a list online filled with a few different books that I picked up. I was so happy to see it there. This book follows our main character, Katie, who is, I believe, from the US, and she moves to Japan after a family tragedy to live with her aunt. While she's there, she has a bit of culture shock. She doesn't quite understand the cultural norms in Japan, such as taking off your shoes. She doesn't know how to use chopsticks. She does not know the language, so she's already feeling a bit like an outcast. But then she meets our other main character, Tomohiro, who is the star of the school's kendo team. He's kind of seems aggressive from what I gathered from the synopsis. He seems a little bit like a bad boy, but whenever Katie and Tomo are together, strange things actually start happening, such as drawings coming to life or pens exploding. And this is because Tomo is tied to the kami, which were ancient beings that used to rule over Japan. This one sounds like it has some Japanese folklore intertwined with it. I'm not sure how accurate it'll be, but it sounds really, really cool. The author actually spent time in Osaka, so this is inspired by her time living there. This one sounds like it'll be a really fun read. It is the first one in a trilogy of main books, but there also is a prequel and a book 2.5, I believe. So I'm excited. I hope I like it because I'll have a lot of reading material. The next book is also from Second and Charles, and I was so excited to see this there. I've wanted to read this series for so long. I've just never picked it up. I don't know why. I know they now have beautiful new covers because a new one was just released as well, so I really hope I like it. I've heard such good things. And that is The Graceling by Kristen Kishore. So this is, I believe, has 4 books in the series now, and each one follows a different main character. But in this one, the main character is Ketsa, who is extremely good at killing. She is graced with the skill of being able to kill anybody fantastically. She is the king's niece, but she is forced to be his thug because she is so good at killing. And then she meets the Prince Po, and she does not expect to become his friend, but they do befriend each other. I'm guessing there's a little bit of a romance, I'm hoping. So I think this will be really, really cool. I'm stoked. It was in such good condition, even though it is one of the older covers, but I'm really, really excited to have been able to find this for $4. The next book is one that I have seen the cover of many times. I always thought it was very cute because there is a cute little creature that actually grows as you progress further in the story, and that is The Novice by Taryn Matheru. And this book follows our main character Fletcher, who is a blacksmith, but then he finds out he can actually summon demons, which is a rare gift. So after he finds this out, he must travel with his demon Ignatius to go to a special academy to further improve his summoning abilities so that he can fight in the war in his world against the orcs. This sounds very exciting. It sounds like a fairly easy to get into fantasy series. I'm not sure how many books are in there. I at least know there's 2. And the last book that I got from the used bookstore was another one that has been on my wish list. I am so excited. I did not realize that this book was actually a popular pick until I was watching BookTube, and quite a few booktubers were recommending it to me. So I'm really happy I was able to get it for so cheap. And that is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I believe there are 3 books in this series now. This book follows our main character, Rin, who tests out of her small village and is sent to become an elite soldier. So this one also sounds like it has some training elements similar to a shonen anime, which I absolutely love. I love seeing characters grow and get stronger. I'm not sure what the overarching plot might be. I don't want to read too much about it. I want to be surprised by this one. I think this is what I will read next after I finish the Grishaverse, which I only have 1 more book in. Alright, the next books are ones that I got from Barnes & Noble, and some of them were recommended to me through TikTok. Others were ones that I wanted to buy for a long time. The first book from Barnes & Noble is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I'm sure you've heard about this book. Everybody seems to love it. It sounds like it's going to be the type of book where you sit down and you just fly through it. This book follows Evelyn and Monique. Evelyn is a Hollywood movie star, and Monique is a lesser-known reporter that Evelyn actually chooses to recount her life to. Talking about the 7 husbands she meets throughout her life, what it was like being a glamorous movie star, and it sounds like Evelyn and Monique's lives that were actually intertwined in some interesting way. So I can't wait to see how that might play out. I usually am not super drawn to fiction, so I hope I like it, and I'll keep you updated. The next book I absolutely love, the Grishaverse, so I had to get Leigh Bardugo's first adult fantasy book, and that is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This one sounds like it's going to be a series as well. Honestly, when I picked it up, I thought it was a standalone, but I'm excited because I love Leigh Bardugo and I will read anything that she writes. This one follows a Galaxy, or Alex as she goes by. She is a very unlikely person to get chosen for Yale, but she has a very hard-lived past, and I think this book goes from that past to her future at Yale. And while she is at Yale, she actually has to delve into the secret societies that Yale has, and I believe there are some forbidden magic type things going on. I am stoked to read this book. Another thing I really struggle with is the trope in fantasy where it takes place in like urban settings. but I trust Lee Bardugo. So I'm excited to see what this one turns out like. Next up, I cannot believe I have not read this book before. I love space, I love Brandon Sanderson, I love YA, and that is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. So this is also a part of a series. I'm not sure if it's a duology or a trilogy. I do know there are at least 2 books in the series though. And this one follows Spensa. She lives in a world where humanity is pretty much eradicated because they have been under siege and attack for so long, and the only people that really survive now are pilots. And so she gets chosen to learn how to be a pilot. Her father was also a pilot, but he actually deserted and disappeared years and years ago. So she has to kind of learn what happened to her father. She learns about herself. It sounds so exciting. I love space stories and I love Brandon Sanderson's writing. I'm probably going to fly through this book so fast, and honestly, I can't wait. Next up, I actually was able to get 2 books by this author. I did not know that she wrote a new series, so I'm really excited. But my friend recommended The Red Queen to me, which I know has some mixed reviews, but I did love the Shadow and Bone series, and so my friend said that I would love this one as well. It sounds like it has sort of a similar Chosen One aspect to it, which I love that trope, so fine by me. But this book follows Mare, who has red blood. In this world, there are 2 kinds of people, one with red blood and one with silver blood. If you have silver blood, you are usually magically gifted in some way, and the red bloods are usually the lowly, the lower class citizens in this world. But Mare, who has red blood, finds out that she has a secret magical ability as well. So it sounds so fun. I remember reading this book when it first came out. I don't remember absolutely anything that happened except that I liked it. The only reason I did not continue this series was I read the first book right when it came out. Obviously the next book wasn't out yet, and if there's a big gap, I would have had to reread it again, and I just never got around to it. So now is the time. I'm stoked. The other book I got by Victoria Aveyard is her new series, and the first book is called Realm Breaker. My husband actually pointed this one out to me. He saw this cover and he was like, oh, you will love that. And it does sound great. It sounds like something I will love. So this book follows, I believe her name is Coraine. I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but she seems to be a nobody, and then her destiny comes calling and knocking at her door. This is another one where I don't want to read too much of the blurbs because I'm really excited for this series, but on the back it seems like it's kind of a ragtag group of people. I love ragtag groups. But it says we have a squire, an immortal, an assassin, an old sorceress, and a pirate's daughter. This one sounds super, super fun. I hope it is amazing, and this one I will probably be pushing up in my TBR to like close to the top. Okay, the next book is one that I forgot was coming out. I'm so sorry. But one of my favorite series of all time, I don't care if it's basic, is the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas. It is amazing. I love it. I know Sarah J. Maas is not everybody's cup of tea, but I highly recommend her. But the next book, it's not, I wouldn't say it's the next book in the series really, because it follows a different character, and I think this series does wrap up nicely in the trilogy that it does have. But she did write another one which is called A Court of Silver Flames, and this one actually follows Nesta. I don't know a lot about it other than that. This is another one where I don't want to know too much going in. I like to be surprised, and sometimes I feel like book blurbs give away too much of what happens. But it follows Nesta as opposed to Feyre and Rhys. I really hope they make a cameo. I'm not a big fan of the new covers. Let me know down below if you are. I do think it fits the adult fantasy genre a little bit more than the digital art of Feyre that was on the other ones, even though I love that art so much. But it'll be an interesting read. Nesta's got a lot of pages, so I'm excited for this one. And lastly, it was one of my most anticipated books of the year because it's by an author I absolutely adore, and that is Lore by Alexandra Bracken. I've actually met her before, and I love her. She's so sweet. So this book follows Greek mythology and Greek gods that come to Earth as mortals every 7 years. And it does follow the main character whose name is Lore. I believe one of the gods killed her family, and so she is trying to figure out who it is, who is now a god, but he's coming down as a mortal. And I think she's trying to get revenge. I'm just super, super excited. Thank you so much for watching my first ever BookTube video. I'm really hoping that I can keep doing these because I love books. and I've been watching so much BookTube recently that I just want to be a part of it. So I will keep you updated on which books I read. If you would like to see more videos from me in the future, make sure to like and subscribe this video, and I will see you around. Goodbye!